Thank you. I wanted to tell you a little story. I was passing by the Michigan Avenue today, and I saw a protest in front of the H&M clothing shop. People were protesting, business was running as usual, and there was no police presence. What for? All was going on well. Just a few blocks away, another protest was held in support of Burma and calling for a boycott of the next Olympic Games in Beijing. Once again, there was no police presence. All was going on well. And at this point, I really felt jealous. Such basic elementary thing, which we call freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom of assembly, are not possible in contemporary Russia. That is why I would like to thank all the main team and all the activists behind Gay Liberation Network who managed to bring me here despite some issues, such as getting visa. During the week I spent here, I have been able to measure the important work that they are doing here. I have also heard this story that made me think that not everything is perfect here, and the tragic event that we are commemorating today is here to remind us. Yes, I remember when Matthew Shepard was killed in 1998. It was in Wyoming. It could be somewhere else. I think almost every gay, lesbian, and transgender person who heard about it thought it could be me, thought that it can be me one day. In fact, that's all the story behind the images of Moscow Pride that you can see now on the screen. It's the story of a few people who are fighting for the society to accept us because they don't want such an event to repeat again. One say that human rights are indivisible and universal. Who can believe that you can just open the book of human rights and pick and choose? There is a Diet Coke, but there is no such thing as diet human rights. Support some minorities and at the same time remain silent on other issues is a form of passive racism. We have many problems in Russia when it turns to human rights. The rise of xenophobia and racism is strong and orchestrated by nationalist ideology and fascist groups. During this year's Pride, we organized a press conference on the theme LGBT rights are human rights. The chairs of the human rights organizations that we invited remained empty. That's an issue in the Russian society. When you have 90% of people who claim that gays do not have right to the gay parade, that gays have no right to freedom of expression, then you always find such people among human rights groups. It just makes it more difficult for us. When Matthew Shepard was killed, I had already partly made my coming out to a few friends. I didn't have any plan to devote part of my life to activism. At that time, I was a student. Then a few years later, I decided to devote my PhD to the legal aspects of homosexuality, but Moscow State University barred me from doing it. They finally sent me off the university. It was fine for them to keep my tuition fees as a gay person, but it was immoral to allow me to pass a PhD on LGBT issue. I challenged their position in court and lost after the university pressured one of the professors who was willing to witness in my favor. Then I thought if the institutions want to prevent me in my queer studies, I will move on the practical side and go to LGBT activism. So I wrote 2 books on the legal aspects of homosexuality. Then I created Project Gay Russia, which I wanted to be on the same model as Peter Tatchell's Outrage in Britain, and the same work then Gay Liberation Network is doing here in Chicago. When we started in May 2005, there were only 2 of us. We organized several events in support of gays in Iran. We also worked on ending the ban on blood donation by gay people. We have many ongoing projects beside Moscow Pride. 2 years later, other groups have joined us, and there are about 30 of us doing all this noise from Russia now regularly. We were 50 at the last Pride, at the first Pride parade, and we were 150 at the last one. It can seem to be small, but believe me, to find 150 people ready to come on the street and rainbow flags when they know that they will be assaulted by the fascists and jailed by the police, that's really a lot. You might ask yourself why we are doing all that. Gays and lesbians in Russia are not looking for any kind of revolution. We just want evolution. What kind? Just that our basic elementary rights granted by the Constitution are respected. The situation in Russia would not seem to be that bad for a tourist who come there for a few days. Moscow has some bars, clubs, bathhouses and other gay infrastructure. St. Petersburg also have the same. People can meet and get acquainted, but everything remains underground and not advertised. Some has to be our personal life. As soon as your private life is known, then you can risk to lose your job, your friends, and even at some point your family. There is no anti-hate laws. The Orthodox Church has gained quite a lot of power since the collapse of the Soviet Union, and they are working on stigmatizing us. Same are doing some politicians, especially before the elections, which are going to take place this year and next year. In 2002, the parliament discussed law on recriminalization of homosexual relations. This law didn't pass because our country is a member of the Council of Europe and are bound by some international treaties. In some ways, we have won to move the debate on a different point. Now the question is not anymore to recriminalize homosexual relations, but to allow gays to express themselves publicly. 2 years in a row, the mayor of Moscow, Yuri Lushkov, has violated the constitution by refusing us the right to march. He is planning to do it again next May. All the court system backed his illegal refusal. We lost all our appeals inside the country. Ultimately, we have applied to the European Court of Human Rights, located in France, and the judgment, judging by similar precedent against Warsaw in Poland, we know that we will win this battle. But the process is long and might take another 1 or 2 years before we get a decision. But we are going to march again next May. Matthew Shepard was killed in the United States, but these similar horrific crimes happen every day, all around the world, including Russia. It goes unmentioned. Only if we are united, we can prevent future violence against us and violations of our rights. Human rights are never given by governments, which like to keep people in fear, because fearful people are easier to fool and control. Gays usually have to forget fear in order to fight for the recognition of their basic rights. That is what happened during the Stonewall Rebellion here in the United States. And that is what's going on in Moscow with the gay pride parades. We need to be united in our solidarity internationally to win our freedom and equality. Remembrance is the first step in this direction. Today we remember the victim of our mutual fight for gay liberation. We should never forget and we should always remember. I believe that one day we will bring these high-ranking homophobic politicians who incite hatred towards us into account. No matter where they live, no matter whether their name is Lushkov, Mugabe, Kaczynski or Bush, who threatened to veto our memory of Matthew Shepard. But we can only do it together as part of Global Gay Liberation Network. Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming.